it was like being in an open zoo with your bike. Like it just I didn't thought it was gonna be so open, like in terms of like they just put the route on the middle of like the Masai Mara, which is where most of the wildlife live. And you just go through and you see, giraffes and you see like zebras and wild beasts, and then they have to cut the road because the elephant is going through. And so it was, yeah, there was no fence, no anything. So it just went into the wildlife, like as if you were one more animal.
Welcome to the Canadian Cycling Magazine podcast. I'm Matthew Piaro, and with me is Matt Hansen. Welcome, Matt.
Thank you for having me once again. I'm on a streak.
It's amazing. How long will you keep? Well, we did break your streak earlier in September. You did.
I did my own, actually.
What? You did your own podcast?
I didn't post it anymore. I just kind of recorded myself talking to myself. It was pretty good.
Was your recorder like a tin can with a string?
It was, and there was actually no mechanism to record. I was just talking into the wall.
Well, if only the walls could talk. On this episode of the Canadian Cycling Magazine podcast, I have an in-depth conversation with Sami Sauri. She is a cycling adventurer, photographer, and storyteller. She does inspiring races and rides and does a fantastic job of documenting them. And we will get into that chat in just a few minutes. So, Matt, you and I have seen the film video. I'm not sure what to call it. It's not a clip because it's about 30 minutes, and it's about the Migration Gravel Race, which is a 4-day gravel event in Kenya, which Sami Sauri did in June.
You know, whenever you see people doing wild things, you're sort of envious of it, and then you're kind of like, oh, that looks kind of long and painful, but you're still the scenery and the landscape was just stunning. I mean, it's just pretty amazing. But there were times I was like, oh, maybe I wouldn't want to do that.
I do think it's inspiring. Like, it is challenging, the gravel roads there, and Sauri gets into this in the interview. But as you said, the scenery is amazing. There are, I was going to say lions and tigers and bears. There were actually zebras and giraffes and wildebeests because the race goes through the Masai Mara region. It's in the National Reserve, which has, of course, stunning scenery as well as wildlife.
I mean, I'd say that the length of the stages was one thing. I thought it was on some of the stages, you know, they definitely make you earn the zebras and scenery, you know, because some of the roads are beautiful, but I thought, you know, they start off with these relatively easy looking, almost like fire road level of gravel, and then it gets just nasty, you know. So that was when I was like, I think I'd like to skip that part.
Yeah, and there's even some sections of challenging single track. It looks pretty awesome. The occasion of my chat with Sauri is this video, which just came out, and it is presented with the help of YT Industries. There is some focus on Sauri's YT Scepter, not only in the movie, but get into some details in this conversation because, you know, it's gravel and the choices that you make for gravel are fascinating. It's not as, let's say, simple as road. And so we talk about the tire choice, and even this bike had some front suspension. So that's a pretty interesting machine.
I think you need it on some of those rocky roads there, or at least it would help.
And so it may seem a bit of a mismatch in December to be talking about a very hot race in Kenya that happened in the summer, but I think this is a good time to talk about such activities because this is a time of, you know, looking back, of reflection, and also getting inspiration for the year ahead. I hope listeners take inspiration from this and gets the wheels turning. Maybe you're not going to Kenya, but it is a time to start thinking about what you can do to challenge yourself and find adventure in the year ahead.
Can I have some of those bike packing stuff, by the way, at the office? Because I'd like to go on an adventure now. It's inspired me. Can I take some of the stuff on your desk?
Yeah, there's stuff under the desk, under somebody else's desk. That's stuff that is going to be featured in the upcoming issue of the magazine. You can borrow it.
I always return things.
I think so. I think that's fact. Fact checked. Actually, we get into one of Sauri's bikepacking adventures that happened after the Migration Gravel Race. It was in the Kachkar Mountains in Turkey, and it is just a bonkers story. Listeners might have heard about it already through Sauri's Instagram, and she posted something about it on her website, but we also get into that because it is just a crazy adventure when snow caught them off guard. There's a very seasonal thing. Snow caught them off guard in the mountains. And with that, let's get into the big end-of-year chat with Sami Sauri. Sami Sauri, you've had many on-bike adventures this year. They've included Across Andes, a multi-day gravel event in Chile. There was a bikepacking adventure in Turkey where your bike got lost in the mountains, buried in snow. There was also the 360-kilometer Traca gravel race in Spain and the 200-kilometer Dirty Reiver gravel race in the UK. But recently, a film has come out about your time in Kenya. That was in June. The event that brought you to Kenya, or the central event, was the Migration Gravel Race. Before we get into the event itself, how did the Migration Gravel Race end up on your list of rides for 2023?
Well, I wanted to discover new places and obviously new adventures. And I think through events and sometimes racing events, it's really fun to go to these places. So I had Migration Gravel in my list since their first year. Unfortunately, I thought I had to get vaccines to go, so I decided to not go the first year at last minute. But this year I managed to do everything nicely. And yeah, part of the Gravelist series, which is also the Tracker owner and good friend of mine, decided to include it. And I was like, okay, this is my year. Like, I have to get to Africa and Kenya specifically. I've never been there before, and any part of Africa, basically. So yeah, it was big on my radar, and that was it.
Did you have any expectations beforehand?
Not really. I like to not have many expectations. You know, I didn't thought that I didn't want to dream too much, because you never know how the dream can be in reality. And I think yeah, it definitely was everything but my expectations.
Okay, we'll get into the event itself in just a second, but how did you plan for it? I think in the video that's just come out, you say you trained for more than 6 months, but you don't usually do that. Can you tell me about why you decided on this type of preparation for Migration Gravel?
Well, I think it was migration, but the year itself, I had a little tease of like going back to racing and doing events and doing more community stuff. And for that, I think you need to be fit. And then I asked a friend if he can help me, and now my friend is my coach also. So, and he's a very passionate person, and I thought, yeah, why not? Like, let's give it a try and try to be consistent on something. And yeah, I trained for more than 6 months. When I said that, I meant like I've never trained 6 months on a row. Maybe I did like 2 weeks, and that was, or like 2 months, but that was probably my max. So this time I do like 6 months, and it was pretty good.
Yeah, what were the differences you noticed from doing a longer session of training than you usually do?
My goal was to suffer less than I used to do. I feel like it was more like enjoying while you fit on a race and pushing a little bit yourself to the limits, before it will be like suffering from 0 to 100 and to A to B, you know? So it is, again, it's for migration, but it was also for my day by day, and it was also to like be able to do other stuff and keep my fitness level high. So somebody that helps you do your planning over the weeks, it's just very useful. And I felt a massive difference, even though I have to say the gravel scenery has been changing a lot. Before I used to not train much and I still will do okay on a race, and now I train a lot and I still not even on the top. So yeah, it's what it is. But I think I like the training thing.
That's interesting. And what you just said about how you didn't used to train much and now you do. And it sounds to me like you're coming in around the same spots and races. But I guess that speaks to how gravel racing has changed in the past few years. Is that more of a level of professionalization, would you call it?
Absolutely that. I think not just professionals are coming in, but also the woman level. It's really getting high, and at the end, you need to train to keep up. And yeah, I think it's gonna keep going like that. So better be prepared.
Speaking of preparation, there is a mandatory equipment list for the Migration Gravel event. It has some things that you might expect, like a sleeping bag and a rain jacket. From the film, it seemed it rained quite a bit, like on and off throughout your stay there. But there's also lion spray, and then in brackets, joking. However, there seemed to be a lot of wildlife throughout this event. Can you tell me about the wildlife?
It was like being in an open zoo with your bike. Like it just I didn't thought it was gonna be so open, like in terms of like they just put the route on the middle of like the Masai Mara, which is where most of the wildlife live. And you just go through and you see, giraffes, and you see like zebras and wild beasts, and then they have to cut the road because the elephant is going through. And to be honest, I had no idea I was really going into that so deeply. So it was, yeah, there was no fence, no anything. So I just went into the wildlife like as if you were one more animal.
One more animal, but this one just on two wheels amongst four-legged animals. That's amazing. This was not just about the Migration Gravel event. You had some other things planned before the race. Can you tell me about some of those events that you had?
Yeah, so I came earlier to Kenya. I went to visit Iten because I wanted to see the Team Amani house and their pump track and everything they're building, because yeah, I think it's an amazing thing what they're doing, and it's just beautiful to see it with your own eyes. And I went there, and then afterwards I wanted to do a women's ride in Nairobi to motivate also other women's to come over and see that they can do it as well, and they can be racing, and they can be coming to the events and stuff, and just meet each other. And if they ever need a house or home in Europe, they can always be welcome. So that's always my goal with the women's rights and the W Collective. And then after that, I just went into the Safari Gravel race, which is just a 1 day race that just warms you up.
Now, there was an unfortunate incident during the Women's Collective ride, I believe. You went down on your bike. Can you tell me a bit of what happened and then how that affected you later?
Yeah, slipped like on a trail. Like we were on the forest inside little park in Nairobi. It's beautiful, but it was raining a few days, and everything was very slippery. And I slipped off. I had my camera, and to protect my camera, I went straight into my hip and bump. But I didn't really pay attention. It was like, oh yeah, it was a hard crash, but I kept going and didn't really make a scene, let's say like that. And in Safari gravel race, I felt like really tight and bad, but not as a difference that other times. And I think the crash came later, and in migration, I was having a lot of pain on my first day, and I related it obviously to the crash because I couldn't even like walk and get out of the bike. It was such a weird pain that I never had before that it got me a bit scared. So I took it easy.
You took it easy, but you were still able to continue. And I'm curious because this is a theme I think that comes up in a lot of maybe gravel races or even sometimes bike packing, is that sometimes you're confronted with challenges. Some of them are worth pushing through, and some of them are indications that you should stop. how did you know that this was one that you could maybe push through? Because you rode with this pain through of the 4 days through days 1 and 2.
There was, well, the migration gravel had like a very good program by getting like massage. Like you could get massage every night, or you can get like a package or like a 1 day of stuff. And I found this guy who like literally just put me straight and like repair me on 1 second. So I decided to like get the whole package of it. So and he treated me every night. Like it was painful. Like I cried, I think, a few times of how much pain he was. But at the same time, the next day I will wake up and I'll be like, okay, I'm all right. Like I can keep pedaling. So actually, thanks to that, I could keep going. And yeah, at the end, the pain is also sometimes a bit mental. So I just try to not think about it and just do as much as I can and finish the race. That was my goal, especially because the fourth day was the most prettiest day, which is the day I never end up doing.
Right, and we'll get into why you didn't do stage 4. Tell me about the crash you had on stage 3.
Well, that was so the game was on at the end. On stage 2, I remember finishing fifth, but that fifth, I think it was like getting myself into like fourth place, and like there was timings and stuff, and the girl who was behind me, we were battling between, yeah, fourth and fifth place. And anyway, like on the next day I was like, okay, I need to get the time off, and the only time I can get off is on the downhills because she was a pretty good climber. So on the first, I think it was 40Ks, it was a roller coaster. Like it was going up, I think 3,000 meters, but it was still rolling. And on every single downhill, I will like really push until this point that like two media cars, I guess, passed us on the uphill because we were going slower, but obviously on the downhills they are slower, and they didn't got out on time, so we were getting a bit stuck because it was like a just a double, like single track. It was not like a big gravel path or big gravel road or anything. It was like wild. It was out there. And then they were a bit in the middle, and then I got really anxious and nervous. So after telling them, oh, get away, I really, really pedaled hard to gain that time that I lost on like waiting them to get out of the trail. And on a curve, I just found like basically like a stream, or like an open hole stream typical of the rivers. And then I just went synced, literally synced in it and just flew over the bars. Oh, that's actually what my friend, she was behind me, Maria. Most of the race we were buried together at every single stage. And that day she was behind me and she saw me. So I lost conscience and I didn't remember how did I crash. But she said I flew over the bars, and yeah, that was basically it. And I woke up and yeah, I was just in pure pain. I thought I broke my back.
Oh no, that is frightening, going over the bars and losing consciousness. In the film, it gets a bit of that action. You end up getting put in what should we call it? An ambulance?
I think it was an ambulance. And also like just a little note there. This was my first time I ever broke something in my life. And this was my first time in an ambulance ever.
So many firsts. First time to Africa, first time in an ambulance. And it was kind of that also brought on another sense of adventure because this ambulance had a winch and it had to pull out a truck. What happened there?
Well, that was just a joke, and I was on tramadol, so it seemed to be even more of a joke when they say, "Oh yeah, we can go through, but we are the only ones with the winch." So basically, yeah, because of that, yeah, they had to help the truck that had all the baggage of all the riders. So yeah, we were the only ones.
Man, that sounds wild. So you were in a lot of pain, and then that meant you did not do day 4. But you're still out and about. What did you do on day 4 of the event?
It was pretty funny because I decided to stay there and not get me into Nairobi on a helicopter to the hospital because first of all, I didn't really want to be in a hospital while there was going on a race and everything else. But at this, yeah, I don't know. I decided to stay in the camp. And then I also decided to on day 4 stay in the media cast and then shoot and yeah, just tramadol and
Tramadol and photography. But I want to get into photography because that is also part of what you do. You love bikes, you love photography. Can you tell me more about the connection between those two parts of your life?
yeah, photography came very young in my age. My aunt gave me my first camera when I was 6 years old, but I never thought that I could take that as a job, as my everyday and stuff. And yeah, beginning of 2018, I actually did a big trip to Route 66 and like I took the camera and actually it was pretty good. And from then on, I kept going. And I think maybe because of that trip, or maybe because the camera just goes with myself and like the bike, I realized that I could, do the both at the same time. On this case, immigration, obviously I couldn't ride and shoot because my ass was broken. But yeah, I still loved to do the both of them. And I think one doesn't go with the other and the other doesn't go with the one.
Yeah, they both go together, but I'm also wondering like sometimes does the camera work take you out of the cycling? Do you know what I mean? Like you still have to stop, maybe set up a shot. Is there ever conflict there where you're like, no, I want to keep riding, or no, I need to take this shot now. This trumps any riding I'm doing.
Funny that I never found a conflict until I did my first ultra gravel race in Patagonia, also this last month. And I wanted to take a camera with me so badly, like just a small one. But I was like, okay, I came here to race. Let's give it a try and not take any photo, any distraction, any camera. And this is the first time I was gonna do because that's also another story. Such a long ride, and not taking any camera with me. I took my phone, but I just don't like the phone. It's just not the same.
Right. So did you feel like you were missing something by not having your camera?
Absolutely. Especially on the start of that race, it was so beautiful. I thought I could like, yeah, take photos of everything and yeah, I was missing it. But I was also a bit on the zone and I enjoyed pushing it.
So can you tell me, you kind of said you broke your butt at Migration Gravel. What was the injury that you actually sustained on day 3?
So after all the race, came back home, did a X-ray, and my sacrum was broken, which meant the well for somebody who doesn't know, there's coccyx, then sacrum, there's column. So it's the one in the middle. So I was really lucky that it was one of the 4 on the top one. So it didn't hurt much when going to the necessity toilets or like sitting down on a chair or etc. So I only could do is like chill because there was like six weeks to chill. It's like the ribs, you can't do anything, you can't recover them faster or something like that. So yeah, that was it.
So you're out of commission for about 6 weeks, but it it sounded like if you had to break a bone, that may have not been the worst one to break.
Exactly.
All right, I want to now talk about your bike. Close to the start of the film about the Migration Gravel event, you get a special YT scepter. Can you tell me about that moment?
I mean, being with YT, it's been really nice. Like it's the first brand that, the first 3 months they were really like chatting to me. So I think to like get to know me because you like sometimes get an athlete or whatever, and then you're like, okay, like that's it, there you go, contract bye. But they like got to know me over the 3 months, chatting to me on the phone and messages and stuff, and I don't know, really nice, to sort of like work with them. And suddenly, like in migration, there was Isaac, who is the social manager and sometimes also athlete manager, that came with us, and he brought like a bike bag and a box. And I was like, after 2 days of seeing that, I was like, oh, why? When we arrived to Safari on Lake Navasha, I was like, oh, why are you bringing a box? And he's like, oh, yeah, some like gear, like tripods and stuff from the guys, because there was like, two guys with us. And I was like, oh, yeah, it makes sense. But I was so naive. I had no idea that that could be a bike for me. Like, in the world, I would never think that there was a surprise for me, because there's not something I'm normally used to or I've never got. So yeah, it was like, okay, yeah, yeah, yeah. And then we arrived to the hotel. He goes to we were like, okay, let's have lunch. And he's like, yeah, I'll take a 15-minute like call that I need to do a meeting. And I was like, okay, okay. So we took lunch. And while we were taking lunch, he was building the bike, but I had no idea. And then straight after lunch, we will go to this like spot that you can see in the film, and they're like filming me, and I was just like interviewing. And then so basically, I hear in that same hotel there was only one more person. That was a Spanish guy, and I'm also Spanish, by the way. And then he's like, there's like this wheel spinning with like the hub, and I was like, oh my God, this Spanish guy doesn't understand that we're doing an interview. I was so mean. And then suddenly I just turned around like I was gonna say something, and I see this bike, and I was like, oh my God, I cannot believe it. And it's like, yeah, this is for you. And I was like, no, 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 no. Like, and I could just say, yeah, wow, oh my God, like I can't believe it. Still the day of today, I still can't believe that it's just like pop a bike like this, with a beautiful paint as well, because I love flowers. And yeah, they sort of found like the most, let's say, nice and yeah, porcelain flowery bike. So it was really nice.
Yeah, your reaction is fantastic. You are just so shocked. It's a great moment. And you use the word porcelain to describe the look. When I saw it, I thought, oh yeah, like Wedgwood plates. It's got a white background with very blue floral pattern. Now, was this YT just taking what they knew about you and distilling it into a pattern? Or did you give them any guidance?
Oh no, no, like I had zero idea about this, like nothing. And the bike was fully built, and they even talked to SRAM, and I was talking to SRAM to get like the gear sorted, and they didn't tell me anything. Like, so it was a full-on secret. Like, I have no idea.
That's great. I want to talk more about the specs of the bike. You posted them on Instagram, and I just want to touch on some of the highlights. There is a RockShox Rudy Ultimate fork. Did that have 30 or 40 millimeters of travel? Do you remember?
30, if I'm not wrong.
Okay. And then there was it's a 1x setup, a 40-tooth chainring, and at the back, I think you had a big 52 cog.
Yeah.
And then the tires were Hutchinson Touareg, and they were 45 millimeters in width. Did this setup work for the gravel that was at Migration Gravel?
Oh, it was perfect. I will not change anything there.
How would you describe the gravel then? It's so different from one region to another, from one country to another. How would you describe the surfaces that you faced and the challenges you faced while pedaling Migration Gravel?
I think there was everything besides smoothness. So, I think it's like a real gravel road, like not like a highway gravel road that I call like the Girona gravels or like the Unbound gravels. That's not like it. It's more like a technical gravel. There's some better sections and some worse. We had some single tracks. Oh my God, yeah, we did had some crazy single tracks on stages too, going up and down, that they were absolutely amazing.
Tell me a bit about the geometry of the Scepter. Was it dialed for this kind of riding? What kind of position does it put you in?
A perfect bike for migration, because like, let's say if I was gonna do like Deer to River, I would have changed my bike to something a bit faster for sure. But this bike, it had suspension. Like you could see a mix of people going with mountain bikes and others with like gravel. And I had a mix of both. So I think it's just, yeah, perfection.
I see, I see. So with that suspension and probably with the squish of the 45 millimeter wide tires, that worked for that terrain.
Yeah, absolutely.
Are there any other highlights from that trip that stick with you even months after?
Like migration gravel race, what is really nice is that you are basically going 4 days with the same people with different camps. You eat all together, you like gather all together in the morning and in the night. So everybody talks, you meet new people, and all these people are going through the same path as you're doing. So I feel like as an event itself is not like I don't know, like a 1 day race that you just basically start and finish and then you go to your house. It's like, no, there's like more through it. And you also meet like a lot of like Kenyan riders and, like Masai Mara is a very, very, very big culture. Um, and you get to know all of that, which I think if it was not thanks to that race, you will not know it.
When you pick an event like Migration Gravel or even the Traca or Dirty Reiver, how do you set your goals for those events? Is there a level of athletic achievement you're after, or are you more focused on adventure, experience, or even story?
Good question. I think to myself, I wish one day I make it to a podium again. But to the sense of what I really want is, to be honest, to keep adventuring and inspire other people to do the same. And just to sort of, I don't know, go through this entire story that, cycling is giving me. So it's not that much of a race. It's also, if you finish the race, it's, yeah, congratulations. But if you finish in a podium, wow, congratulations. But yeah, I just think it's the whole thing itself and the story and the inspiring part of it.
I want to jump ahead now in your year, that was 2023, to a bikepacking trip you did in Turkey in October. You had a scepter on that trip, but it was a different scepter, not the one with the lovely floral pattern you had in Kenya. And this scepter went through a test I don't think any other bike has gone through. But first, can you tell me what was your plan for that bikepacking trip?
I think I definitely put any kind of scepter onto the test. Like there's been trailers, there's been skis, there's also a ski bike trip that is coming out as well. There is migration, there is the snow. And the bike, well, no, I'm not gonna lie, I still didn't touch it. I put it in some random cardboard boxes and came back home. But yeah, it's been a big test for that bike, and so far so good.
Okay, so just to update listeners, you and your riding partner, Nick Kusiniers, were in the Kachkar Mountains in Turkey, and a snowstorm blew in, and it was a pretty serious storm. Can you tell me more about the scene and then what happened after that?
Yeah, I'll go straight to the moment that we are like 100 meters from the peak, or like this, let's say like the go over the peak, in the Cascade Mountains at 3,000. So we were gonna go up 3,100, and basically 15 minutes before that, a big cloud comes in. But we pushed so hard and so much with heavy bikes that we were like, we're not dropping this one. So we were up on the top, and at that time, my hip again, like hurt it for a bit. So Nick was bringing up and down the bikes, and I was bringing all the luggage attached into like tubes, like inner tubes. So I will do like a backpack, but with inner tubes and bags that we had. And then I will bring all this up, and then he will bring the bike and then go straight down to pick up my bike. And then I was seeing the wind blow over the little crest on the top of the mountain, and it was like probably 60, 70 kilometers an hour wind, so strong. And the snow was dumping really hard at the time. And I was like, oh, this is not good. But I can't move. Like I don't want to go up to check. I don't want to leave Nick without like me or like anything. So then as soon as he came in, I was like, I'm sorry, but I think here this need to be like a straightforward action and we can't go over. And he's like, what? And I was like, do you see the wind? Like if we go there, we're gonna die. And we don't know what is in the other side, and I want to not risk it. And he's like, what should we do? And he started to like really freeze. And I was like, oh, this is not good. Like, and I was like, okay, we're taking our gear as much as we can. We're coming down, we're pitching the tent on this like bowl, and then we're making a plan. But we left the bikes up. So we did not bring the bikes down with us because that will make us slow. And when we were down on the tent, that was the moment I sort of panicked. I was like, I'm gonna leave my bike up. And then I don't know what to do. And I'm the one from the mountains. He's a bit from Belgium, so it's a bit like, flat there. And then I was like, okay, that's it. Like I have to do this. Like I have to make the decision, because he wanted to keep going, but I didn't. So basically, I said, okay, we in 3, 2, 1, we go out. Each of us take a part of the tent, put it in a bag, and start going down really fast. And we go down the same way because we know where we came from. And I I am very good in orientation, and I think that sort of helped a little bit because every single path that we went through, it was covered in snow, so we couldn't really see anything. So we basically went down and found a sheep shelter, which he was already closed, and he sort of put some nails on, but I kind of like I kind of wasn't like life or death, so I like opened it up however I could, and we went in there, pitched the tent inside the sheep shelter because the woods were not even close enough to like not make wind. All the wind was coming through like holes on the woods and stuff. And at that point, I had the idea of opening up my other SIM card, like the French one, and because I bought like an eSIM, and then the French one had reception, which the other one we had 2 days without reception, and that's also why we couldn't check the weather, obviously. And then I sent a message to my best friend, and I was like, "Hey, we are stuck in a snowstorm. We met a guy the day before that gave us his Instagram. This is his Instagram, and uh, I know that he has a 4x4 if he can pick it up in these coordinates." And then the coordinates of this house was the end of the road that we cycled the day before. So basically, I think, well, I said like pick us up next morning. We have a shelter, but I think he deleted that part. Basically said pick them up right now. And amazing it is, the Turkish people, they're Muslim and they really love offering, and they can't leave somebody behind. So an hour and a half later, when Nick was already asleep, I was like, Nick, there's a car coming up. There's a car coming up. And he's like, stop dreaming. There's nobody gonna come up and pick us up. And I was like, I promise you. And I was like I'm gonna say this because it's like pretty funny. I was like in string, and I jumped off like the sleeping bag because I was sure I saw the car, and then suddenly there was somebody illuminating our tent, or this little shelter with their lights, and I was in string like, here, save us, like. But also I think they saw us because I made a fire before, which made smoke, and the smoke was still going, and because everything was like on holes, like on the house, then yeah, they basically saw the smoke and realized that we would be there.
So there was a mountain rescue for you, and the bikes were left behind. How many days did they sit in the mountains before you went back looking for them?
So they were, let's say, 4.5 days, which 2 of them were pure snow.
Man. So did you think you would find them after all that snow hit them?
Well, no, but yes. The thing was like, I wanted to go in spring back again and be like, okay, like melted snow, and then suddenly pops the bike out. And nobody will go up there at this time of the year, like absolutely nobody. So at the same time, I was like, okay, there is a weather window. Like there was a weather window of 2 days, and I was like, we're here. let's just do it, whatever happens. So we bought some shoes and some pullovers and stuff that we might have needed, because we were only having like bike stuff. So and then yeah, 4 days after well, 3 days after, we rented a car, and then we drove 6 hours to this like the other side that we had to reach the day. And then climbing up a gnarly road with the car, like pretty gnarly, and arrived to this place. And when we explaining them what happened, they did not understand at all. Like they were like, these people are crazy. How are you gonna go up there? And I was like, yeah, just walking. Like we just done it, so we're gonna do it again. But yeah, the snow was until knees or above at that point.
And you found the bikes. Tell me about that moment.
So I think we're lucky enough in this time of the world that we have GPS watch and we have GPS trackers. So we tracked our hike that day. So we knew that that was our end spot. Plus, I literally, if I'm honest, I actually studied that mountain by heart because I didn't know what was the best crossover, and that was the only hike bike thing that we had to do in theory. Um, so I knew exactly how the mountains were going on and formed. And yeah, when we found them, we didn't really found them straight away. Nick's bike was a bit more popped out, but I couldn't remember if I put mine on top of his or under his. But we couldn't see my bike at all. It was like absolutely buried in snow. So I started digging in after he took off his. And also I left my bike without a wheel. I don't know if that was stupid or not, but the wheel and the helmet was in one rock, and then the bike was in another one. And then yeah, I basically started like digging in, and I couldn't find it, and I was getting like a bit nervous until a point that actually I found it. I found my back wheel, and yeah, I just started it. But I had to like get all the snow off to be able to like bring it up because it was heavy. It was really heavy.
Did you then put that front wheel on, and then I think you actually had to ride it for a bit, or did you ride it for a bit?
No, we didn't ride anything after that trip.
Oh, so you packed the bike. Oh, you mentioned you packed them up, but like I guess you got it into the car and just got out of there?
Yeah, okay, we rode a tiny bit on the last bit of the trail because it was dry finally, and then we were like done with hiking, and then we just rode down the mountain when the snow stopped. But after we put them on the car, we already had the cargo boxes. We slept one more night, and then the next day we were taking a plane. I think like I would have continued the trip, but I was so exhausted, and also like the weather was a bit tight to be there. Like the snow was starting to fall in most of the places we wanted to go. I wanted to keep being high because it was the most prettiest part, and that was not possible. So it would have been the entire road would have been scratched, and done another. So we decided to go back home and chill out.
Probably a good decision, but I want to know someday how the bike is doing if it ever gets back together and it gets back on the roads.
Okay, it's back together, but I'm not sure about the rest.
Nice. You have that bike that suffered in Turkey a bit, but your newer bike, the one you got in Kenya, was put into service again. We've mentioned the Across Andes event. Did you change your setup to that bike at all when compared with what you were riding in Kenya?
The only thing I changed was my tires. I went a bit like slimmer, but aside from that, everything else was the same because I just loved what I had in Kenya.
And the bike worked well in this new continent?
It did work very well. It didn't like the rain though, like me.
Right. I understand the rain was actually so strong that it really caused problems for you or for a lot of riders in that race.
Yes, it was just a combination of rain for 36 hours and cold. So it was just not like rain and warm. Like I got the same rain or similar, not for so long, but in migration or in Kenya, and it was like fine. Like it was like, you will get a shower and then you will be dry after like an hour. But there was no way to get dry outside. It was a stove of wood because they obviously don't have heaters. In like Patagonia, they have like wooden stoves and it's just tiny, so there's 10 people around it, and yeah, it was just like another level.
Returning to the migration gravel film, you mentioned at one point that in 2023, this was the first year that you were able to make a living as an athlete. And I found that really striking for someone such as yourself who is so prolific, putting themselves out so much, riding so much. Can you tell me a bit about that facet of your career of like, we see you riding, we see you filming, but there's also a whole other business aspect behind it.
Yeah, I mean, let's say that before, I was racing Red Hook, so criteriums. After I just went to like fly free, let's say, and like learn and production and working with outskirts and thereabouts. But that was like I had to have a job on the side some of the times, and then after that, I just got I was the community manager for Komoot. But I never really earned enough to be like, okay, I can leave my job and give it all for cycling until basically now. So, this last years. And then, yeah, I don't know. I wanted to basically give it all. So I reached to more sponsors and being able to like, pay my bills and do my year, was incredible, like was totally different. And I have a production company who just gives me some bits and extras, but I left it a bit behind this year to concentrate more on cycling, and at the end it paid off this like on 2023, even though 2024 the industry is going a bit maybe all around and maybe it's going to be a bit harder, but hopefully that's just 1 year and not more.
I wanted to get into the year ahead because we're speaking in December. It's the year end. It's often a time of reflection and maybe planning. In 2023, you did big races and bikepacking. Do you have a sense of what the mix of events will be like for you in 2024?
That's a very good question. I'm still a bit on a limbo, let's say, or on a cloud, seeing where the rain drops, because I kind of want to do a lot, but I can't. My body can't do a lot, and also I can't be like, oh yeah, I'm gonna register to everything and go to everything. It doesn't happen like that. As I said, this probably will be my second year living from cycling, so you need to be careful as well on what and where you do it. So I think it's gonna be a combination between 1 day races, which maybe are the tracker and maybe something else. So 200 to 300K races, and then a couple ultras probably. And yeah, I can't avoid the bikepacking. So the bikepacking will be high on my list again this year. Going back to Turkey to finish the route, and think I want to create one more so then I can release it and people can go and do it as well.
Well, it sounds like an interesting balancing act. I'm excited to see how it pans out in the year ahead. Thank you for this chat. Thank you for taking us into great detail through the gravel migration race and all your other adventures. So with that, thank you very much and good luck in 2024.
Thank you so much for having me.
And that's the episode. It is written and edited by me, Matthew Piaro. I had help from Matt Hansen. Thank you, Matt.
AKA the glue.
Oh, we're still going with that. The glue.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The glue that does what?
Holds the ship together.
It's not a glue that my kid left out after doing an art project and is now just rock solid.
Yeah, well, I am getting older. Every day it's working with you.
Am I increasing the aging process?
Feels like it. Some days I feel like I come home and my face is haggard from the stress.
Oh, wow.
Yep.
Okay. All right. Well, maybe you need to lie down after this. I'd also like to thank Terry McCall for his help on the episode. The episode is produced by Adam Killick. He does something else.
He does the music.
He does the music. Thank you, Adam. Also, thanks to Ontario Creates for its support. So I guess you're going to go lie down then to help address this accelerated aging process that you face working with me. But I don't know, we got some trainer rides planned there?
Just going to get out there and give 110% and just kind of keep on committing to the cause and, just trying to see how I feel and, hope the legs are, feeling pretty good.
You forgot day by day.
Oh, day by day, yeah.
Yeah.
Another thing I hate about cyclists, by the way, since we're talking about them.
Go on.
I hate when English-speaking cyclists use, when they say, I had good sensations, like pros say this in English, because they're just trying to say bon sensation, whatever. Just say my legs felt good. I get it. You're living in Europe. You're racing in Europe. You don't have good sensations. You had good legs. My legs felt good,
I think cycling is developing, once you're on the team bus, you're developing your own dialect. So I think you're being a little...
I've known guys that have gone to Europe for a week and they come back and they want to go to the bathroom and they're like, where's the WC? It's like, buddy, goes to Holland for 3 days, comes back and where's the garderobe? It's like, no, man, like, come on, stop.
It's like your friend who went to England for a week and then couldn't find his jumper when he returned.
Yeah, I know. Jump on the lorry, buddy. I know. I've lost my trainers.
Oh, but come on. We say gilet.
No, I say vest. Because it's a vest. And I have nothing wrong, of course, with other languages. I'm a big fan of them. I just think, goes to Italy for 2 days and comes back and it's like, oh, I can't drink Canadian coffee. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, it's just pig swell. It's like, buddy, you're drinking Timmy's before this. Nothing has changed.
I forget which race it was. It was earlier in the year, and this and they made note of it on GCN Plus RIP that the racers started saying hectical. I think it was hectical. I think that was the word they made up. It wasn't just hectic; it was hectical. And
I kind of like that actually. It's like 11-teen. It sounds like it almost works.
Oh, so some words are acceptable,
irrespective of your opinion. No, sorry, I said the wrong one.
You wanted to say irregardless just to make me crazy.
I wanted to say, look at that. See, I'm so well trained. I can't even say the wrong word. Irregardless.
Okay, and as we devolve into grammar mistakes and jokes, let us end there for the year, actually. We'll see you in 2024 to talk way more bikes, way more cycling. If you're riding, if you're on the fat bike, ride safe over the winter break, and we'll talk to you later.